sander with a handle. Do you guys lose tools in your shop a lot too? Because we sure do. I don't know where it's at, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to Driftwood Guitars. My name is Chris. Matt's behind the camera today, as usual. We've got the full rig. We got lav microphones, and Matt's even got headphones on to monitor.
Hang on one sec. We'll just hello.
Now he's also head of engineering and our executive producer.
It's more responsibility with no pay raise.
That's right. That's great. So as you can tell by the title of this, I wanted to start you guys off on a whole new series of videos that I'm going to launch. I am building a guitar out of 3,000-year-old ancient Sitka. And
Do you want to try and run that again?
Probably.
We're close enough in. You can try that again if you want.
As you guys can probably tell from the title of this video, I wanted to get you guys started on a whole new series of videos, and I'm actually going to be building a guitar out of a 3,000-year-old piece of Sitka spruce for a good buddy of mine.
But Chris, how is the guitar 3,000 years old if you haven't even built it yet?
So, some of you guys may have heard of this wood. This will actually be my third guitar I've built with this. Alaska Specialty Woods, which is like it's probably my largest supplier that I use for top woods, Sitka spruces specifically. They're up in Craig, Alaska. In 2012, as far as I understand, he was digging out the side of a hill so that they could expand their warehouse, and he found this giant log sticking out of the mud. And as somebody who's a wood dealer does, they go, well, let's cut it open. And he sliced the log open and saw that it was this crazy gray color. Knowing that it was Sitka spruce, went, okay, something's weird here. They sent it off to be carbon tested at a lab and found out that it's 2,850 years old, according to its carbon dating, and that the tree itself, when it fell, was 250 years old. So that puts it at, when the tree was growing, it was 1100 BC, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And that the gray color that you see inside the wood actually is finely ground up granite and silt from the hillside as it was being churned by the glacier. So it's just an incredibly cool piece of wood. There's only one log of it in the world, and it's just super cool. Brent Cole up there at Alaska Specialty Woods has, I think he has a story on his website talking about it. I'm going to put some photos in this video so you guys can see when he was digging it out and slicing it open. It has this cool certificate showing that it's carbon dating, which is a really cool thing. So I don't obviously do a whole lot of these. I know Santa Cruz Guitars has built a few guitars with this wood. Like I said, this will be my third one. I've only finished one, and it was my top 1-2 favorite guitars I've ever built. Just incredible sounding, ridiculous sounding. I don't know what magic happened when it was stuck on the side of that mud, but I do know that the guitars that I've built with this just ridiculous. The cool thing too is that because I've built with this particular piece of wood, it's literally from the same log. So I'm going to be able to kind of look at my notes and know what made that guitar really great. I've got all the brace wood, not just the top, but he sends me a billet of wood along with this that I'm going to be using for brace wood. It's going to match. So that's going to be super cool. The back and sides of this guitar are going to be made out of Gaboon ebony, which I know is an odd choice, is a weird choice. It's not unheard of. It's just not something you see very often. So my buddy Will picked out this for his back and side set. It's got a coat of shellac on it, so it's a little shiny, but you get an idea of what it looks like. And I think this paired with this ancient Sitka is just going to be killer looking. The ancient Sitka has a very like a silvery gray. Sometimes it catches even greens and purples in the light once it has lacquer on it. And we're going to be doing it in this body size, which this is my Grand Session. It is a 16 1/4 inch lower bout, 5 inches deep. It's a very large guitar. It's my largest, and it's every single guitar that I've built, I think for the last 4 or 5 years, has been a Grand Session. It's based off of the Taylor, like Grand Auditorium and their Grand Symphony if you were to split the difference, it's kind of in between those two. I've shaped it a little bit differently, brought the waist in just a little bit. My favorite guitar, and so I think that's kind of part of the reason everybody likes it, but plus it's like I kind of talk people into it. So I'm super excited about this guitar build. We're going to be using this piece of mahogany here on the workbench as its neck, and yeah, you can really see it there, right? It's kind of almost got, I think a lot of times people call this like a bee's wing figuring. So that's going to be super
I
killer.
don't see that even a little bit, but okay.
So the idea of this video series is that Matt and I have been kind of stirring ideas around, like, okay, what are we going to do a video on? What are we going to show you guys? Because once again, I want this to be a channel where it's educational. It teaches you guys how to do things kind of in an informal way. But I want to make this a channel where you guys can learn. And so why not build an entire guitar from the ground up, from start to finish, and do a video series for the whole thing? And what cooler way to do it than for a buddy of mine, Will, who's a local musician, who's getting this guitar, and using it with some of the most special wood that I've ever built with. There's probably less than 50 guitars in the world that are ever going to be built with this wood. So I think that's super cool.
Well, that's not entirely true. You just have to wait another 3,000 years for it.
That's right, exactly. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead in this video, I'm going to join this top, show you guys how I joint my tops, and then in the following episode, we're going to start moving down the line of production, and I'll take it over to the CNC machine. I'll thickness it in the drum sander first, and we'll put it in the CNC machine, and I'll have it cut my rosette and shape it and all that stuff. And we'll just keep the progress going. So this will be episode 1 of, I don't know, God, I can't imagine how many episodes this is going to take. But if you want to come along for this ride, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can hit the bell so that you'll be notified whenever I put up another video. And but we're not done yet today. I'm gonna join this top so you guys can see how I do that.
I think we got that.
Let's try to hold it in. Okay. Oh, didn't see you there.
So what is this, by the way? What is this?
This is my notes book, my journal book, I guess. We'll touch on this later more in depth, but for anybody who is getting into building or kind of wondering why they're not able to kind of get to that next level of building, I know you've heard it 100 times, but you have to keep notes. If you don't keep notes, then you're not going to know why one guitar sounds good versus the other. It's a guessing game, but there's so many steps involved with building a guitar that it's really easy to forget, oh yeah, I did that one thing, or I made this one brace a little bit different than I normally do, or the top was slightly thinner than the other one. So I just pulled this down because, like I said in the beginning of the video, I've built a guitar with great success sonically out of this particular piece of wood before, so I can look back at my notes and see exactly what I did with it. See how thick I made the top, how tall I made the braces, how thick they were, how much deflection I had inside them. So this is going to be one of those cool opportunities for me to be able to almost just do a cut and paste as far as how I voice the guitar. Obviously, I'm going to let this particular piece of wood tell me where it's happy too. If it needs to have slight variations in thicknesses, I will do that. So I was just kind of looking on here and just seeing what my thickness was. My final thickness on my old guitar that I built out of this was 2.8 to 2.84 millimeters. So I was just kind of seeing what that was. So with that, before we get moving on this top, I can measure it and see where we're starting at this one. And right now we're at 4.65, so we've got plenty of meat on the bone. I think the way that I joint my plates is a little bit different than a lot of people. I don't have like the cool jig where you put your planer down on its side. I do it like kind of in a more minimalist kind of way, which I think is going to be cool for a lot of people who may be watching this, who you're wanting to build your first guitar and think, I don't have the tools to do this. So the first consideration always is, this is one of these few steps where Matt actually knows how to do this too, because I've taught Matt how to join plates for doing our drop tops on our electrics, which is super cool. On a guitar like this, I want to catch that blonde sapwood down the middle. I just think it's a cool look. I'll bring this once again back over here just for visual reference. I want to join this top so that we catch that. So you got to work around it. Other considerations on this are going to be these little pinholes that we have inside of it. There's a little mark here. So this first step is really just kind of looking at it deciding which side's going to be the front, which side's going to be the inside.
Well, and this is sort of the artistic side of it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
your discretion, right?
So these marks, a lot of times when you get your woods, are going to have chalk lines on it from the person you bought it from. I think this side looks better. What I'm looking at is these cool little lines here. I like these dark streaks here. So I'm going to do that. So what I need to do now, because this is actually where the bark of this tree was, I need to actually remove these little chunks and get a nice straight line so that I can start working with my hand plane there. I think the easiest for me out of the gate will be using the bandsaw though. So I'm gonna run over there and do that. Being very careful because this is once again a $2,200 piece of wood.
Wow.
There's normally if this was just like regular old Sitka, it's like, well, if I mess up, I'll just order a new one. But not only is it expensive, but I feel like a duty to getting it right. I just said duty. Let's see. How does this work?
You gotta be smarter than the lamp, Chris.
There it goes. Jesus Christ. All right, so I'm thinking here. I'm just trying to come up with a way to do this. I don't know how much of this will keep.
So what kind of, you looking with an experienced eye right now, what kind of problems are you trying to solve before they arise?
So the first thing that I'm doing is this board is slightly narrower at this end than it is on this end. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip it and use what I'm going to be my joining end. I'm going to flip it to this side, and I'm just going to run this thing so that I can make my board parallel. So that when I go to flip it and actually cut my straight line on this end, that I'm actually going to get a true parallel straight cut. Let me grab my hearing protection real quick and we'll fire this thing up. All right, so now that I got my hearing protection, I'm going to stack both of them. We're going to cut everything that we do here. I'm going to do them at the same time because I want them to be perfect mirrors of one another. So like I said, what I'm doing is I'm bringing this in so that it starts right at the width of the narrowest end of this, with the side that I want to keep towards the fence. Okay, so now what I've got is the board is the exact same width the whole way. So now what I can do is move this.
It's kind of weird to think that that's about $50 worth of wood right there.
Probably, yeah. I save as much of this. There's going to be all these comments about like, oh, what are you doing with the scraps? I save all of my scraps of this ancient Sitka. I use it for like inlays and stuff. So I will sell this right here for $400 if anybody's interested. But yeah, so now what I'm going to do is my plan here is to run this bandsaw, and I'm going to take off just what I need to. Take off the unusable kind of exterior wood on this. Boom. So I wasn't able to save as much of that blonde wood as I was on the original. On the guitar, you know, that's hanging on the wall. That's got a really nice look to it. So that gets us roughed in. That obviously that's not even close to a good enough joint to join them. Also, side note for the internet, is it joining or jointing? And I know that there is a difference, but in this particular case, are we joining the tops by jointing them? I think that's the case. But it is jointing. I think jointing is the act of running them through a jointer or using a joint plane, and then you have to joint them so that you can join them. Internet, what do you think?
Joiner? I barely know her.
Exactly. All right, so here's where I kind of run a little different. A lot of people will take this and put it inside of a jig that they have for jointing it, jointing it. I go old school. I'm going to take these bad boys and get them like this. And we are going to put them in here. And I'm going to grab I've got a number 7 Stanley.
Who's Stanley?
Who the hell is Stanley? This is an old, like 1919 old Stanley Bailey plane, and I've replaced the blade on it with a Veritas PM-V11 blade, which is super cool. But it's not square. This is not perfectly square, so I can't. A lot of times people will set this on a surface and then run it that way. So what I do is I start off with this big boy. I'll get it dialed back. And you want to use as long of a plane as you have. You don't want to do this with a block plane because it's just not long enough. Once this is about averaging this out to get this as perfect as possible. So I'm going to set this on here. Once again, this is number 7. I'm be a little bit more liberal with my passes here at the beginning, just to kind of get as much of the bad material removed as possible. And that's kind of already to the point where I feel good about taking big cuts. Once again, I'm being very careful here because A, it's expensive, but I also don't want to remove as much. I want to keep as much of that light colored wood as possible, which is just visual. That's not sonic. That's just a visual consideration I've got for myself here. So I've backed off the blade.
We'll talk a little bit about what you explained to me about the importance of your stance, because I definitely came at doing planing from as an amateur, obviously, and I had it's not really like preconceived notions, but there were things that I thought that you did and that you don't do. Definitely not. So yeah.
So on this one, especially with these longer planes because they're heavy, and once again, this is not optimal. This is not the best way to do this. This is just what I'm used to, so this is what I stick with. Is that you have a tendency when you're running your plane just from the geometry of your body to go low and then to arc down this way. So what you end up with is a hump here. So I'm getting a stance like this, and I'm using my body to make sure that the only thing that's moving are my arms as I do this. Another consideration is your hand pressure as you apply. As I start out, my hand pressure down is on my left hand, and then as I come onto the board, I'm starting to slowly transfer my weight onto my backhand, so that as this planer comes across here, my weight is now on the back. I want to be keeping as much of the weight on here as the largest surface area that's touching it, and that just prevents low spots or high spots. The other consideration, and the reason why this is not the most optimal, is because this is a concern, the left to right, keeping this perfectly square. That's why if you do this the more traditional ways, that's not nearly as much of a concern. I check it at this point. We're not there yet. I've got a perfect straight edge. I will check it to see where we start. Oh, maybe we're gonna get lucky, Matt. This one's already looking really nice. So you want to get
some
to
daylight right here, but that's towards the end
where
of the
Matt's
guitar.
at, looking this way because there's light coming through that window is a really good spot to check for gaps. And you got to remember, we're book matching, so any gap is going to be magnified ×2 because you're jointing 2 pieces of wood. We really got to get this jointing thing sorted out. I'm switching over to this Bridge City. This is their 12-inch bench plane. This is I think this is about kind of what the equivalent of like a Stanley number 5 would be as far as its size. But this guy, it's got a really good blade on it, and I know this blade well. We go way back. Once again, I keep my upper body very still so that I don't change the geometry of the plane. Taking off just little slivers. Let's see what we got. You don't have to use the straight edge. It just saves me some time. If I'm way off here, I'm not pulling this thing out of the vise to check it. Pulling it out of the vise to check it. Pulling it out of the vise to check it. I can kind of make sure that I'm close before I even do a visual check.
I'm already seeing a lot less daylight.
Yeah.
And I think people watching this video will agree. Yeah.
We'll go a couple more, just taking even less of a bite. This stuff is really brittle, so it's a little hard to cut really cleanly on there, but I think we've got it. So what I'm going to do now, we'll come back over here, make sure that we're on a flat surface, and we're going to check this for fitment. It look really good. I'm going to flip it, we're going to check the other side, and then we're actually going to take it over to the window, and we're going to check for light leaks. Some people make these fancy like light boxes with like fluorescent lights and like a milky opaque kind of a cover over top of it to do it, but like it's just do a window. Like you can do, I've got a 400 square foot workshop, I ain't got room for that. When me and Matt build a bigger shop, maybe, right? Maybe we'll go crazy and build a light box.
Yeah.
There we It looks really nice to me. I'm going to probably do another pass with some sandpaper. Found the tool. This is a tool that Veritas sells from Lee Valley, which they make fantastic tools. It actually sits flat and it gives you a perfect 45-degree angle, and you can actually run it along a piece of wood like right here and get it. But what I've got, I'm going to do it right here because I've already got a really nice square edge, and try to sand out a little bit of these marks here. Just being very careful I keep it square. Very light pressure. And now I've got rid of all those little ridges, which is like, I just barely put any pressure on it. So I feel really good about that. I was telling Matt when I was teaching him how to join plates, plate joining, sometimes you get really lucky and it'll join in 2 seconds, like a couple of passes with the planer and you can end up with it, which is what just happened here. Other times it'll kick your ass and you'll be chasing after it for like hours. And I think you've had a couple of those, right, Matt?
I've had good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, I remember Tom Sands, who I follow on Instagram. He's a builder out of England. He put up an Instagram post about that last year, and I was like, yes, it's not just me. Another one is the neck alignment, when you're flossing the neck to get it to sit right. Sometimes you'll be like a couple of passes of sandpaper and your neck is dialed in. I have spent like full days drenched in sweat trying to get a neck to line up correctly. But so what I'm gonna do is grab my plate joining jig that I got from LMI, and I'll show you how I do it with that.
Yep.
We have our finest vintage of LMI's Luthier's glue. And this is what I use pretty much for all my stuff. There's some guys that use Hide glue. There's some guys that will use Tight Bond yellow glue. This stuff I've been using for years. Absolutely love it. That's a whole separate debate. We want to piss off people, talk about like Hide glue doesn't make a difference or it does make a difference.
Pick a fight with us in the comments. Come on,
That's right. I'm using this with great success. I have built guitar on insistence of people I'm building them for who were like, you gotta do it out of Hide glue, and I did, and there's no difference. It's more work, and it smells. There's no difference. There's a lot of other hills you can die on to make a good sounding guitar other than the glue, I think.
Is there an and seek glue too?
A what?
Hide and seek.
Shut up. Let's get out of here. Okay, so everything's good. We've checked to make sure that the joint is perfect between the two. So now I'm just going to do my glue up. And like everything, less is more. You don't have to coat this thing in 600 pounds of glue. Come in here, Matt. You can see it doesn't take much.
That's a nice beat.
Wait, don't. Hang on. Let's see if I can get it up. Doesn't take much.
I felt like a golf presenter there for a second. And he's on the green.
Okay, so that's lined up. That feels good. We're gonna get this on top. And now we're gonna take the lines, not the ropes. And I'm gonna push down on top. And cinch it. And we're gonna rinse and repeat. And you can find plans for these plate joining jigs online all day too, so you could certainly make one of these yourself. I've kind of gotten to that point in my building where I'd rather just buy the jig instead of spending the time to make it. But if you guys are just getting started on guitar building, that can be one of the big overwhelming aspects, is like you spend more time making jigs than you do building guitars, and that's just part of it. But time spent on a good jig is worth its weight in gold. So that is roughly clamped in place. Now we haven't actually really applied any clamping pressure until we put the wedges in, so let's do that now. And I need to grab, we got to grab the persuader. Does it got the label on it, Matt? Yes, the persuader. So I always start with the middle one, wedging it in there. I'm just gonna hand press these in for now. You can see here the squeeze out we're getting. And see, I didn't put very much glue, and I'm sure there's going to be comments, oh, you didn't put enough glue in there. But it doesn't take much. It just doesn't. And in fact, on a top plate like this, man, I really don't want the glue to get in the way of the joint. I want the wood to be touching the wood. Let me smack this here. And these ropes are super tight now. Yeah, it's like you can play upright bass on here now. The cool thing about this is I used to do this on my workbench with like the nails and stuff, but now it's like this is ready to go. I can go stuck this in a corner if I want to. If I had like, if I'm in a big busy project, I'll put some painter's tape on here with a Sharpie and I'll write the time on it so you can, so I'll know like in an hour and 15 minutes I can pull it out and move on with my day. But that's it. We've gotten started on the guitar. So that's day one, step one of building this guitar. And the next video that we do is going to be thicknessing it and putting the rosette in and showing you how I go about doing that. So once again, it's going to be a long video series. Matt, I'm going to be teaching Matt. You guys are hopefully going to be learning. And we will continue with the 3,000-year-old guitar build video series probably for the whole summer, I would assume. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. It means a lot. Make sure you contribute in the comment section. That means a lot. I try to get back with just about everybody who's got questions, comments, concerns. Yeah. That's it, man. You guys have a good one.